Here we go. Welcome, one and all. We're in Sukka Daf Nun Aleph Amud Aleph. We have Amud Bet, excuse me. Amud Aleph at the bottom. Exciting Mishnah. We'll see how far we get. Mishnah. My goal is probably too ambitious, and especially now we just spent a little bit of time where we're regaling you with these stories, which are, let me remind you, not so funny actually in real life, but there will be a funny story if I make it to Eretz Yisrael. So like for me, it's like a cliffhanger. Lovely. Okay, but I got to say one other thing because this is the craziest part. Telling us a story about Simchat Beit Hashoeva. Misha lo ra Simchat Beit Hashoeva lo ra Simcha miyamav. This is Simchat Beit Hashoeva. You did not truly experience Simcha in your life. That was how great the Simcha was. And then it describes what that actual Simcha was. B'motza Yom Tov Harishon Shel Chag Yardu le'ezrat nashim u'metaknin sham tikun gadol. There they went down at the end of the first Yom Tov, meaning the first night of Chol HaMoed. They would go down to the Ezrat Nashim. Why are they going down to the Ezrat Nashim? We'll see it shortly in the book. Sham Tikun Gadol. They fixed something there that was a great correction. Doesn't elaborate in the Mishnah what that Tikun is. We will see on the next page, Im Nagia, what that Tikun is. Probably won't get to that tonight. Menorot Shel Zahav Hayusham. There were great candelabra out of gold. There are 4 cups. There's 4, each one was one stem with 4 parts coming out, 4 branches, each one a cup, right? There's 4 ladders, one for each of the sfalim of the cups. These are very, very, very large cups. There were children from Pirchei Kahuna, the children of the Kohanim, will be Yadayim Kadim Shal Mea ve'Esrim Log, a vast quantity of oil. Shein Matilin Chol Seifel v'Seifel. I don't know if they did it in one trip, or they did it several times, but they would pour it into each of these sifalim, and then they would make wicks. What are those wicks? By the way, the Yeladim are not children. Rashi says they're bachurim. They're young men. They call them that because they're not yet of the age where they can serve in the mikdash. They're not 30. They're younger. They're teens. They're in their 20s, whatever. They're young, but they're not. It's not 8-year-olds, literally, right? Even though Agudas Yisrael, the youth division is called Pirchei. It's from this, but it's not. Yeah, okay, you got it. Okay, so now what did they do next? They had to make the wicks. So mibale michnasei kohanim umehem ma'inehen mehen hayu mafkin uvahen hayu madlikin. So they would tear them up into strips, and they would twist them, and they would use those as the wicks for each of the 4 candelabra, each candelabre, I guess. Each candelabra has 4 stems within it. Rashi points out that on this, mibale michnasei kohanim, the worn out pants, it's really the undergarments, right? And in mehem means the sash. Mimichnasei bigdei hasrad, of the official uniform, those pants. Shemishal tzibor, they belong to the community. It's from the part of the official uniform. 4 bigdei kahuna worn by a kohen hedjot, right? 4 begadim. They have the michnasayim. On top of that, there's a kutonah, there's a tunic. On top of that, there's a sash, and then they have the mitznafet, the headgear. So speaking of headgear. So they would take mechasei bigdei asrad, shemishal tzibur umeavneteim hayishanim mafkin korin lasot pitilot. Right. So they would take those and they would tear them up and they would make those into the wicks. So some of the Mefarshim want to know, like, why those 2 things? What about the mitznafet? What about the kutonet? So one of the answers is these were the items that most often got worn out because it was the most friction. The mitznafet doesn't move; it's on your head. And the tunic was external. The sash was hanging down, had to be tied. And michnasayim, there's a lot of friction because they're walking around a lot. Yeah, they just didn't want to throw it out. The point was, they still had a certain ma'amad. I think they wore out much less frequently. Yeah. One of the achronim, I don't remember who it is now. I saw in one of the compendia, it said that the michnasayim, since the michnasayim is mechaper and gilui arayot, and the avnate is on hirhur halev. like a gartel. Hasidim wear a gartel. It's separate between the upper and the lower part of the body. So it's kedei, so that the heart yira libo et ha'erva, that the heart will not see the private areas of a person. Therefore, there has to be a sash. It's true adi yamazeh, by the way, but most of us content ourselves either wearing a belt, or if you have an elastic waistband in your undergarments, you solve the problem right there. But Hasidim, again, for various reasons, they still put on an extra thing when they daven. That's supposed to be as against the avneit. You don't do white, you do black. There's all sorts of Kabbalistic reasons. But the point is that perhaps those two things were the two risk factors. Hirhur balei, people would have sort of fantasies that were unhealthy, and Gilui Arayat, there could be licentious behavior. Why? Because right now at the Simchat Beit Shoeva, there's an aura of joy, which is on the border of frivolity, which could lead to licentiousness. No less a person than Rabbi Akiva pointed out that schok leads to erva. That's what he wrote. I don't know if that meant he was a very serious person or something. He didn't joke around at all, but right, he thinks that that it can lead. One can lead to the other. It's in Pirkei Avos. So there's something with that, and that might be the reason, and therefore the mitznafet and the kutonot, which had other chataim. One is for avodah zara, the other one is for gasut haruach. So they weren't required here. Yeah, I don't know. So it may be something. Maybe it's an interesting idea. But by the way, if you look at Tosfot, they just leave it as a question. But Tosfot, the second to last one, just says, "Who's the belts?" Tama. The question is the lo chashiv nami ketonot. What about the ketonot? Why don't you mention the ketonot? Yeah. And what about the tunic? Shigam hi haita sol sheish. It's also made out of linen. It also would have made a good wick. And if you look in the footnote in the Masoret Hashas, in my version at least, there's another tzarech iyun. That the tzarech iyun is how come Tosfot asked about the kutonet, didn't ask about the mitznafet, and they left it as a tzarech iyun. The Tosfot Yom Tov leaves it as a davar tema on Tosfot, and that's the end of that. So there's not much farther to go on it. The last line, yeah. Question?
So I'm back on the Ezra's Nashim. Do you want me to wait?
Yeah, we didn't get there yet.
We started there. They went down to the.
Oh, we mentioned it, but if you give me a few more minutes, we're going to get to the stairs and all that. I'm going to pass around. That's when I'll pass around. I'll show you what was the Ezra Nashim. Where was the Ezra Nashim? What's going on with it?
Rashi said, well, that's up to.
It's lower. Yeah.
I'll wait.
Right. They had to go. They had to go down.
I'll wait.
Yeah. Okay. Coming up. It's coming up. Yeah.
Elaborate more on menorah, like how many?
There are 4 menorot, and each menorah had 4 receptacles.
Four menorah.
Giant ones. They're huge.
Yeah.
They're very large. They're very tall. Yeah, this is really Seifel. Yeah.
So the menorah looked like what? Like how many?
I'm going to show you the picture. Well, okay. Why keep everyone in suspense?
Yeah.
I'll hold it up and I'll pass it around. People are here in person. Yeah. Here. Where is it? Here. Top of the page. Can you see it on the screen? That's the courtyard. That's the Ezra Nashim. And there's 4, and they look like what you would see lahavdol in a parking lot. You can pass it around. Everyone should take a look. You see it inside. You see it? There's 4 of them. They're tall poles. 4 poles, and each pole has 4 on it. Lahavdol. So you can see, like I said, the massive parking lot. Today, you'll still see that same structure, right? Geometrically, it just works, in terms of keeping things together. Okay, so now bottom line of Nun Aleph Amud Aleph. V'lo haya chatzer b'Yerushalayim she'ena me'ira ma'or Beit Hashoeva. There was not a courtyard in Yerushalayim that was not lit up from the light of the Beit Hashoeva. So that's a pretty serious amount of light that was radiating out from the Beit Hamikdash. So during the time period of Simchat Beit Shoeva, the idea of the medrash that we speak about in a very beautiful, symbolic, spiritual way, homiletic way, Yerushalayim Ora Shel Olam, Yerushalayim is the light of the world. Every night of Sukkot, that was not the first night of Yom Tov and was not Shabbat, that was happening. It would light up everyone's area, everyone's courtyard in the old city of Yerushalayim, right? Everything in the walls was all lit up from it.
So those menorahs, were they always there the whole year? And they weren't used?
Seems so. And Beit Sheni, yeah.
So this was every night of Kol HaMoed, not just the first night.
Yeah, because they had the mitzvah of Nisuch Hamayim all the time. Remember, every day. So if you look, Arthur, just to remind you, beginning at a parak, Hechalil Chamisha V'Shisha. Remember?
Yeah,
So
I
that's
remember.
because they're playing the music every night.
Every night.
Every night. We're going to see in the Gemara some of the declarations about it. So now, Chasidim v'Anshe Masay Marakim Bifneihem, the Chasidim, the pious ones. I mean, Chasidim like today. It means Chasidim, right? Who are there, and they're dancing. The Anshe Masay means people of renown. They're dancing Bifneihem in front of who's Bifneihem, in front of them. We don't know what the them is. We'll come to that in a few minutes. And next page, Ba'avukot shel or should be yadehem. They're holding torches of fire. They're juggling them. Rashi on the top of the page, Zorkin otam klape mala umakablin otam. They throw them up and they catch them. V'yeshu bikin lasukin ba'arba avukot obishmona. Some know how to do with 4 torches on top of 51b. Top of 51b in Rashi. Some held 4 torches. Some could hold 8. V'zorik zu makabelzu. V'zorik zu makabelzu. They're passing torches to each other. You ever go to the circus? They're throwing lit torches. They got nothing on Chasidim and Anshe. They could do 8 apiece. Yeah, they're going back and forth. Rashi, by the way, I skipped it. I should have said it. That the bottom Rashi on the previous page, I'm sorry, points out Shlohaita me'ir me'or Beit Hashoeva. Rashi says Lafisha menor gevohin chamishin ama. Rashi says he thinks they are 50, as the Gemara is going to say it later, 50 amma tall. 50 amma is like almost 80 feet. So that's tall. Harabait gavoa. Harabait is high. Va'ora zorachet b'chol ha'ir. The light shines in the whole city. V'kotel mizrachi shehu l'sof ezrat nashim hayanamuch kidamrina b'seder yoma. We learned this. Va'menorot olin l'mala heimena. They were much taller than the walls of the Beit HaMikdash because the eastern wall was the lowest. So according to Rashi, the light seems to be mostly shining in the direction of the east, Har HaZeitim, and the people who live in the east. We don't have too many Jews right now who live in this world on the east, Har HaZeitim, and the facing area. It's mostly our cousins, but it's not Klal Yisrael. In the other direction, there are other Rishonim who hold no, and also one in the other direction. The light didn't go just in one way; it went both ways. So of course, it shined on what today we would call the Ir HaAtikah as well, right? So the discussion. Back to 51b. Let's keep going. The Omrim Lifneihem Divrei Shirot V'Tushbachot. They would say before that all of different words of praise. What are those words? Rashi says, look in the Gemara, it'll explain it. We're not going to get there tonight. V'Alavim B'Kinorot Uvenevalim Uvemeltzatayim Uvechatzotzrot. Note that the Levium are holding the following instruments, right? Harps, lyres, cymbals, trumpets, uvichlei shir below mispar, and so many instruments. They're beyond number, innumerable. I mean, it couldn't have actually been innumerable. It means some astronomical number, right? All the Levim would show up, and everyone would come with their own guitar and their violin and their flute and the harmonica and whatever they had. Yeah, where did they stand? Al chamesh esrei ma'alot yordot me'ezrat Yisrael, ezrat nashim, kineged chamesh esrei. The aleph there tells me it's supposed to be shir hamalot shebat tehillim she'alehen leviim omdim bichlei shir v'omrim shira. They would stand there with their instruments and they would sing. Now, just to clarify, this isn't the singing of Kohanim, of Levium, excuse me, for Korbanot. Look at Rashi. He knows you might think that, so he tells you this in line 3 of the narrowed lines of the Gemara of Rashi. What does he say? Last word, She'alein Levim omdin bichlei shir lesimchat Beit Hashoeva. Aval duchan l'shir hakorban eitz lemizbeach haya. Where are we in the Mikdash? I'll pass this around yet again.
Why would we think that?
Because we're talking about Levium, they're standing with instruments and they're singing a lot.
But this is not about.
This is Simchat Beit Shoeva, right? Remember the last page, we spent a long time talking about a Shir Shel Korban versus it was a Shir Shel Korban voices? Was it instruments? Remember? Play shir or bapeh, it could shir bapeh, shir bakli. Okay, so here's the floor plan. This is the Ezrat Nashim. This is the bird's eye view floor plan. And here you have the 4 lights. These are the steps in question. 15 steps from the Ezrat Yisrael, which is here actually, over here, and the Azara, which is this whole area outside of the building. Okay, outside of the building, Azara is outside, sorry. There's the big Mizbeach, There's the area where they would check the animals. That's south, that's north, east, west. Kotel Maravi, not here, but all the way down here on the ground. Far down the whole mountain. Yeah, the retaining wall. So when we daven, we face the wall because it's the Har Bayit, or we face the discrepancy. Some say you face where the Beit Mikdash was. What are you facing? The back of the building, right? That's should clarify. And this is the 15 steps that we're talking about here. Where did the Levium stand when it was time to sing? Where did they stand? So seems to be here. There was a platform, and they would stand on it, facing the Korbanot.
Where would non-Kohen ladies? Where would Yisrael men stand?
If they were offering a korban, number 6, the yellow band. They could not. Some said they could not go past the yellow band. Discrepancy between Rashi and Tosfot as to whether women went in here or not.
Okay.
Rashi seems to say not, and Tosfot say that seems to say yes.
So the Ezra Nashim, the light blue,
No, the Ezrat Nashim is this whole area here.
that's the light blue.
Yeah, well, no. Yeah, I guess. Oh, it's pale of some sort. Yeah.
Whatever.
Okay. I'm going
And then
yeah.
with chef, the animal, you stand in that.
Here, north side.
And then going to go there,
Here,
right
the
there.
smich on the animal was here. Cohen let it here, put it in the rings. Shachting.
Where would the smicha be?
Probably here.
They
The
bring
Ezrat
the-
Israel,
they
right?
bring the-
They bring the animal in, right here. You bring it, do it. You go over here,
Okay.
shacht, and carry it up and offer it. Yeah, it's not. This is not exactly drawn to scale, but pretty close because this space is too small. I think it's too short.
And the things Yisrael would get to take home would be brought to him.
Yeah, we brought them right.
Okay.
Yeah, Shalom, etc. Okay, back to this topic though. We're getting a little off topic. Number 22 on this chart, this thing, the blue semicircle, that's the 15 steps, right? That are outside what's called Shar Nicanor, the main gate that would lead into the Azara. What's happening here? The Levium are standing on it, and they are playing instruments and they're singing. And 2 Kohanim are with them. And the Gemara Mishnah describes Amdu Shnei Kohanim b'Shar HaElyon Yored Ezrat Yisrael Ezrat Nashim Ezrat Yisrael. The yellow band over here is Ezrat Yisrael, but there's a door here. They would stand here, and then the 2 Kohanim would come out here, and they would blow the shofar. Actually, not exactly Chatzot Srot, really, but
The Mishnah started by saying everybody went down. Didn't the Mishnah said after the night of the first day, right? Yardula Ezra's Nashim.
doesn't say who.
Right.
Someone did to set it up.
I understand,
Yeah.
but why would it have said that if it's not there?
It means that the people went down into that area to make sure to set it up because it was considered lower than the Azara, but that wasn't the party yet. That was the setup. Then the people would show up. How much after Yom Tif and Techol Moed? I don't know. Not so much time. And then they would start doing it. What was the it? Dancing. Who's dancing? Not everybody. Only the Hasidim and Anshe Mas are dancing. Everybody else is a spectator, unless you're a Levi, in which case you came with your instrument and you're playing it. And there are 2 Kohanim who come out of the doors. They can be seen by everybody because they're higher up and they're looking out everybody. And they have these chatzot srot and they start to blow the shofar, the chatzot srot rather. And there are 15 steps because the Shirei Hamalot of Tehillim, right? So it describes V'omrim Shira, where they're singing. V'omdu Shnei Kohanim b'Shar HaElyon Shiyored Ezrat Yisrael Ezrat Nashim U'Shnei chatzot srot b'Yadei, and they're holding 2 trumpets. Kara HaGever, when the Gever makes a sound. Now, it's not clear what this gever is, but it might be a rooster. And that would be an important question because we want to know what time of day this is. We'll see Tosfot is animated by this question. Because karut hagever usually does mean actually the rooster makes a sound. In the morning. That's right. So that sechvi is still at the end of night before dawn. Just before dawn.
But the gigantic candelabra are lit. So wouldn't that indicate that it's dark?
Yes, it starts at Motzei Yom Tov. It goes the whole night. And then they would blow to...
Doesn't answer the question of the time of day?
Well, sorry. Yes, maybe, because the Kara HaGever could be a person whose job it was to announce, okay, It's time to do the next phase. Well, on what basis they're making that announcement?
But if it was mostly Yontif, it'd have to be at night, right?
It is Motzei Yontif at night. The point is that there's something that's going to happen at the moment of Kara HaGever. Who is the Gever, or what is the Gever that's calling out?
And when was it?
Right. So if it's an animal, the rooster only does its thing in the morning. Before Alot HaShachar, sensed by humans, the animal somehow is already cockadoodle doing. But the Kara HaGever means a person, a man, announcing it's about to be morning. It's by morning, it means Alot HaShachar. How does he know? So we're wondering what is this Gever of Kara HaGever? Tosfos seem to feel it's a rooster.
Those Tarragon, they go all day long, at least.
But they have a starting point.
My daughter's house, and I'm telling you, this doesn't
A
stop.
first-hand account from George Lennon,
It doesn't stop.
his daughter and son-in-law's house. It doesn't stop, but it does have a starting point, right? It doesn't go 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning. Maybe 4 in the morning starts, whatever it is. So at that sound, tiku v'hariu v'tiku. What do? Taku v'hariu v'taku. Really, they blow a tekiah, a trua, and a tekiah. Now, what do they do after that? Right? They make that sound. We find out higiu l'mala asirit. They come to the 10th step. Big discussion: is it 10 steps down or 10 steps left? Step number 10, how do you count? The Gemara will actually discuss this, and there'll be a certain discussion about it. We'll leave it at that. Taku v'hariu v'taku. They're going to do it again, second time. Then they walk down the rest of the stairs, remaining 10 or remaining 5, depending on which direction it went here. Higiu la'azara, right? When they get down to the azara, but the azara here means actually the Ezrat Nashim, right? That doesn't mean the azara. Mm-hmm. They're coming down, right? So, and some say you should actually erase that and put in what's in the brackets. That's why there is a bracket, because it says higula karka, right? What do? A third time, taku v'ariu v'taku. When they get down to the ground level, but the Ezrat Nashim, tekiah, trua, tekiah again. Hayu tokin v'holchin ad shemegin l'shar hayotze mimizrach. They keep blowing the tekiah. This last set gets blown over a long period of time. They take their time. Once they hit the ground, then they start, but they're still walking as they're blowing short. 2 Kohanim, make way for the Kohanim. The dancing stops, and these 2 Kohanim start walking towards the eastern gate. Till they get to the eastern gate of the Beit HaMikdash. Once they get to the Shar HaMizrach, where is that? So very simply on this chart, it's here.
Was that one long tekiah, or is that
this one, Rashi explains, tekiah, trua, tekiah, but it's a long tekiah, a long trua, and a long tekiah time, so they can walk across this whole area while they're doing it. So that's Rashi. Be'elu shalosh achronot ma'arichin ad shemegin l'shar yotzim me'ezrat nashim l'harabayit l'shipulo l'mizrach to the slope to the east. V'hashar hahu mechuvan keneged shar shem Ezrat Yisrael l'Ezrat Nashim v'yordim imarav l'mizrach. So we learned this in Masechet Yuma probably about 7 or 8 years ago, and that was that this area, elevation-wise, is higher than this area, which is higher than the Harabayit, which is all around it. So this is going down, 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 and this is going up, 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 up. Yeah, that's why there's stairs here. That's why there's stairs here. Everything's going up as you go closer and down when you're going away. So Rashi is making that point because he didn't have fancy, laser drawings of the Mikdash based in the Mishnah and Masechet Midot. They could show us what's going on. So in Rav Menachem Makover's amazing work. So that's what he did. He painted a picture in words. But there's more. When they get down to the bottom, Hafchu Pneihen Mimizrach Lamarav, they would turn their faces back from where they came from to look back at this 15 stairs going up, the Shar Nikanor, into the Azara, into the Heichal. And what do they do for Amr? They would say, Avotenu shayu b'makom hazeh achoreim el ha'heichal upneim kedma u'mishtachim kedma l'shemesh. In the olden days, our forefathers who were in this place put their back to the sanctuary, their face to the east, and they bowed down eastward to the sun. V'anu lika einenu. But us, our eyes are only toward Hashem. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, hayu shonin v'omrim anu lika v'ulika einenu. We are to Hashem, and unto Hashem are our eyes, in the direction of Hashem. Note the name of Hashem here is a Yud and a Hey. Yud is Gematria, and Hey is gematria,
15.
and the total is 15, is the Shir Hamalot. And that's what's going on with the 10 steps and pause and the 5 steps. Now, why was that an important thing? That it was so crucial they had to do it in the midst of the Simchat Beit Hashoeva, like they're spelling out the name based on where they're standing and the position. For that, I'm gonna table that discussion for the Gemara, but this is obviously something here. You want to say something?
So if they're facing eastward toward the sun, it implies that it's morning.
Yes, by the time they're coming down here, it seems like it's either morning or at least the sky is already lit up by the time they get there, right? Otherwise, what do they mean? They used to bow to sun. Or Dafka, the sun has not yet come up, so there's no chance anybody thinks they're bowing to the sun. When they're moving eastward, the sky is getting light, but there isn't actually the sun yet. And then they turn around and they bow toward the Mikdash and they say these words, or at least they give a nod. Yeah.
The language of the Mishnah seems to suggest that their forefathers were idolaters.
Rashi, yeah, that's what it means. Rashi says, "B'bayit harishon hayu kofrin v'lo hayu peneim labayit ela achoreim el heichal Hashem."
But the language of the Mishnah is avotenu.
Yes, in the general sense of it.
Which is-
Mitchila ovdei avoda zara hayu avotenu. It's in the same. No, but Rashi thinks it means in Beit Rishon there were still idolaters, among them sun worshippers who would turn their back. Doesn't mean everybody. The point is there were people who did that. So we, Dav, can make a point of saying we are not doing that. Let me put it in different terminology. And I'm going to build out this thesis. I've spoken about it before. I'm stating it now. It's a bit philosophical, but I'll say it in 2 sentences and we'll be done back to halacha. The holiday of Sukkot brings us very close to a feeling of closeness to Hashem, and the feeling that Hashem is so close to us, or we're so close to Hashem, that we see Hashem's presence everywhere. And therefore, we're willing to take objects of nature and bring them into the service of Hashem, make brachas on them. It's commanded, the Daled Minim, etc. Right? And you have a shocking medrash, that has to do with the Daled Minim, right? It's in Vayikra Rabbah. Everybody knows the one with the Daled Minim as against 4 types of Jews. Everybody knows that one, right? Another one is the Daled Minim are as against the Avod and the Imahot and the Moshe. It's all different people, and Moshe, Miriam, everybody's related. One of the Midrashim is the Daled Minim. Each one represents Hashem. Each one of the Daled Minim represents another attribute of Hashem. But the first time I said it, you paused for a minute, right? You said, what? What are you talking about? What are you saying now? What does that mean? Right. And that's where we start getting to the problem. And so the more this holiday has to do with it, we're going to pick up the water. It's going to be the water festival, the libation of the water. We're going to make really, really sure we keep emphasizing Hashem, this is about you. You who is not physical, you're not in the sun, you're not in the water, right? You're not any of those things. At exactly the time when what's happening, we're gathering in the harvest and we're building a structure, we're going in it, then we're taking Daled Minim, and we have a sense of, the philosophers say, imminence of kirva. So we're so close to Hashem, we're in the yichud room with Hashem, we're in the sukkah, everything's so beautiful. Whoa. Okay, let's make sure we keep a little bit of a distance over here that we understand, right? So how far is it going to go? We're going to bow to the sun. We're going to say, well, the sun was made by Hashem, so clearly Hashem is in the sun. That's how the sun worship idolatry goes. That's how it worked, right? And they didn't have a concept of God, but they knew there's something powerful that comes every day and it never fails, and right, et cetera, et cetera. It can burn your eyes out if you look at it too long, and it causes the skin to be scorched and helps things grow. And so, wow, that's pretty powerful. So here they're like emphasizing, it didn't mean every single Jew. It meant in Beit Rishon, there still were people who believed in all sorts of getchkas and whatever. In Beit Sheni, that abates significantly. Idolatry abates as a Yitzhahar with all those Gemaras, right? And that's partly what's going on here. That's also, we're interested in the Gematris and the Yud and the Hey. We want to make sure we understand, we keep reminding everybody, like, we're close to Hashem, but when we say Hashem is here, Hashem is there, Hashem is truly everywhere. In the famous Zemer for the kids, which I myself sing very, very proudly every year, and on Simchas Torah, everybody knows. But we got to keep things straight. There's a Bore and a Nivra, and they're not the same thing. Or the Bria and the Bore, they're not the same. That's not the same. Can't even say the word thing about Hashem, so it's right there. It's like the language fails us. Comes the Daled Minim, lifting it up. Yeah. And then the water's going to come. We're going to dance about the water. So is it about Hashem? Is it about the water? Anu leka, ve'inenu leka. But leka inenu. Like, that's what we're going to keep focusing on. Yeah. And why dafka the yud and the hey? So we'll come to that another time. Olam haba, olam hazeh. Okay, I have 5 minutes. Haven't even broached the Gemara or opened a single tosa. What am I going to do? What are you going to do? Okay. We'll do a little depth instead of surface. And that is, if you look at Tosfot on the top of Nun Aleph Amud Bet, and we're learning about the Gever. Kara Gever, Taku v'hariyu v'taku. As soon as they heard the rooster do its thing, so according to that view, that it's a rooster, so they would get busy with blowing the shofar, yeah? I would start the process. How long did the process take? Not clear. But Tema, say Tosfot, the mashma shemikara Gever hochli shov mayim. Sounds like from the time they already heard the Krut HaGever, which I tell you again, is before Alot HaShachar, so they ran ready to go get the water. V'im kain, hayu nifsalin belina. Then there's a problem of lina. What's lina? You can't leave something overnight. It's not just that it can't be left over, the water can't be left overnight. It's also that it can't be drawn at night for use during the day. It has to be drawn during the day for use during the day. But it's not daytime. Karta Gever, if it means the rooster, that's pretty earlier than Al Shachar, so they'd have a problem, right? And then Tosfot explains, Dal Korchach lo plige perak Dadkan, sorry, to Adkan, because until here, that was the right it was. The Adkan lo plige perak bet dizvachim eli nekiddush yadayim v'raglayim mikarut hagever v'ad safra ipasla belina olo. So in the Gemara Masachet Pesachim, everybody agrees that when it comes to Kiddush Yadayim V'Raglayim, they took water from the kior and they washed their hands and feet, right, as they did. If it was after Karat HaGever, but it was before the morning, there's no machloket about whether that would be posel belina. Why? Because we assume, basically, the Kohanim already had their hands and feet washed, so it was washed, and even though it's before the morning, it's good enough. But aval mekior nifsalin ba'amud hashachar, right? The water from the kior will be passive from amud hashachar. What's the mea kior? If there was water in the laver overnight. Now, remember, we actually learned this. I'll remind you that the kior, in order to avoid this problem, was actually lowered down into a bore, and it was attached to a mayan underneath it. And then they would have a pulley system, and they would bring it up, and that's what they would use. This is Beit Sheni. Beit Rishon was different. The issue of Psul Lina, but they obviated it because they had a thing called the Yam Shel Shlomo, which is this massive pool that would pour water into the kior, refill it, presumably, we think, from there. But this is in Beit Sheni. That a pulley system, the kior, the laver, like kior in the Torah, but it was a bit of a different one, because that one's didn't have to be made to spec like the one in the Torah, because it's not one of the clay avoda. So it would be lowered into a pit. The pit was filled with water. It was a natural spring. So if the mea kior were out before dawn and then through the period of dawn, out of being attached to the water that's the groundwater, call it, or the ma'yan water, then it would be puzzle in the kior. Aval me kior. I'll read it again. I'm sorry. The adkan lo pligi perak bet zvachim el inyan kiddush yadayim v'raglayim mikarut hagever v'ad safra ipasla belina olo. There's a machloket about if the kohanim washed their hands to do the avoda between hearing the rooster's call and dawn, whether that postles them or not. In the end, my recollection is that it does not postle them, because we say it's all part of the day and they're awake. But when it comes to the water of the kior itself, everybody agrees it's posel me amud hashachar kidemucha chatam. Avafilu silkan min kior achar karat hagever hadar mashkale. Even if they would remove it from the kior after the karat hagever, they heard cock-a-doodle do, they would still lower it again before alot hashachar. Otherwise, whatever was up in that kior would be puzzle. They couldn't use it. So what's the question of Tosfot? To sum it up, how could it be that at the moment that they heard the rooster's call, they sent people already right now, go down and start getting the water? And the signal was the tekiah, trua tekiah on the top of the steps, 15 steps and walking across. Then it would be a problem. They draw the water before dawn. They'd be walking across the from into the Har Beit, and they're carrying water that was drawn the night before to be used the day of. That's puzzle. So how do you get out of that conundrum?
So they can only draw it on a shachar.
It sounds like you only draw it after a lot of shachar to be used on that day. So Tosfos come up with a couple of answers. Every day when they start the avodah, they have to wash their hands and their feet.
So when they
Kohanim generally,
right? But these two
before they do the avodah.
These two, Connie, are going out.
No. It's not related to these two. Tosfos is saying, let me give you an example somewhere else in Shas, where it turns out we're so concerned about the psul lina between Karut HaGever and a lot of Shachar. So why are you telling me that at the Karut HaGever, they started blowing a shofar? We're going to get the water now. It's too early. And if you get the water too early, it's going to be a psul of lina. The answer will clarify. That actually it took a long time. Back to Steve's point from before, maybe the sun really was up or almost up, because maybe they took a long time for this process. They were showing, they took time. It wasn't that when they heard the sound of the rooster, they went running for the water. The sound of the rooster meant start with the sounds of the shofar. 3 at the top, 3 at the 10th step, 3 when you get to the bottom, walking across, right? And they waited till after, on the way back, after they filled it. It was fully daylight before they arrived back at the Azara. What does it say? That if you put something into a kli, and it is a kli that is not inside the Beit HaMikdash, then that kli, even if it's from the Beit HaMikdash, will not give kedusha to something. It's only something that is mukdash to be used for the avoda if 2 conditions are met. Number 1, it's put in a kli sharet, a service vessel. Number 2, that it actually crosses into and is inside the space of the Beit HaMikdash. But with this water that they're going to get from the Mea Shiloach, it's far away. You've been there. It's the Ir David. So they have to go all the way there, have to get it. By the way, it's not as long as it takes us to go to Ir David. Why? You got to walk past the security gate at the Kotel. You got to walk past the guys with the drums and the Chalilim, with the boy with his bar mitzvah, with the yarmulke is partially on the head. And they're all so excited. You're excited for them. You got to get past that, right? The taxi stand, Shar HaShpot. You got to turn left. You got to go down. It's a whole thing. That didn't happen in days of the Mikdash, not only because of all these jokes I'm making, because you went out of the eastern gate and there's nothing there. And you just walk just down the hill and you're in your David. It's not so far, right? There aren't encumbrances there. It's a little distance, but it's not it's not so much. I have video from Har HaZeitim that I took from on top of Har HaZeitim from that hotel there, one of the missions. So we were there in 2019. So you look out and you could see the whole of the length of the Mikdash. It's not so far from the Ir David. So the point here is though, but it was outside. So even if they took a kli from the Beit HaMikdash and they carried it out and they filled the water into it, it's not considered being makdish it for the service, for avoda, till it gets back into the Beit HaMikdash territory. But they're not there. They're in the Ir David coming back. There's no problem of lina. So even if they got there and they filled the water before the sun came up, before dawn, and then they come back, as long as they get back and it's after dawn, who cares? Fine, no problem. There's no psul lina there. Sorry, I said it too fast. But it's only going to work. The Makad is something when it's bifnim, when it's inside the mikdash, which didn't happen yet. As they brought the water back, they would bring it in. Yeah, this process was the end of the dancing. How did they do the end of the dancing? They heard the sound of the rooster or the crier. That's the other possibility. Some of the Rishonim. The crier said, "It's going to be morning soon." How did he know? He knew that's some inkling that was going to happen. They didn't have clocks, so how do they know?
He's also
He's not. He's the crier, and then 2 kohanim are doing the shofar.
Didn't it say here that the Gever didn't think
No. Read again, right? V'amdu shnei kohanim b'shara elyon shiyor mezud yisrael ezrat nashim u'shnei chatzotzot b'yadeihen, comma kara gever. When that happened, then tak'u, because the gever is singular, tak'u plural means those 2. It is a little confusing. But that's the point here is they're drawing it out. Tosfos says they want to make sure they're not going to have Psulina, but really they went up Psulina anyway because by the time they get down, they come back, they would get through the issue. It's a little bit over time. I actually have to run because I promised I'm going to call them 8:45, already 8:50, but that's on me. Lila told everybody no shear next week, no shear, God willing, no shear. If I make it to Eretz Yisrael, but there will be a shear God willing the week after. And you'll wake me up if I fall asleep in the middle of that shit because I'll probably have crazy jet lag. I will be back, by the way, Emir Hashem for Shabbos. I'm not going for Shabbos. It's Sunday to